So our next speaker is Aragorn, I love the name, Meulendijks from BEEMUP. And he's actually building the metaverse. Their platform is called Your Open Metaverse. And you can create your own virtual worlds. It's not ready yet, but I'm excited. Aragorn is also a philosophical thinker about this metaverse. What is real? What is not? Are we in a matrix? I'm sure you will enjoy his insights. So please welcome Aragorn from BEEMUP and Your Open Metaverse.
So everybody, I won't be sharing my screen the traditional way because, obviously I'm too cool for that. And that would make everything work way too frictionlessly. So I'm going to share my screen with my OBS setup. Here we go.
The grid. A digital frontier. I tried to picture clusters of information as they move through the computer. What did they look like? Ships, motorcycles? Were the circuits like freeways? I kept dreaming of a world I thought I'd never see. And then, one day...
You got in.
That's right, man. I got in.
Right. So for those of you watching, I can't really ask any easy questions of the audience right now, but maybe you recognize that sample. It was from the movie Tron Legacy, which was released quite a few years ago already. And that was actually a sequel to a movie Tron released in 1982, which was 1 year before I was born. And funny thing is that I'm just going to switch back to myself here for a second. So the funny thing is actually that this movie has had a massive impact on my life. I think this was one of the first movies that, was dared to think of a world that all, was inside of a computer, a virtual world, right? Because computers, even in 1982, computers were still super early days, right? A computer at the time still, was the size of your refrigerator today. It was massive. It was probably even bigger than that. So the whole concept of having computers move into this age where you got personal computers a few years later at home and people could work in them, and then the concept of having virtual worlds come into existence where we could exist in a different reality, that was really still super science fiction at the time, and that influenced me throughout my entire life. So in 1999, The Matrix came out, and I was still in high school. And at the time, me and my friends were blown away. I'll never forget that it was my French teacher, a woman that I really loved because she was kind of young and she could kind of relate to us in a way that most of the other teachers couldn't. And she came to school and she gave a French class, which, by the way, I hated French at the time. And she said, "Guys, I saw this movie that completely blew me away." And we were like, what movie is it? And she said, The Matrix. And so we went to see it. And, that changed my life again, because that was the second time in my life but the first time that I was conscious enough, developed enough to kind of really think about the philosophical implications and the societal implications and all of that The Matrix brought with us. And so it was super exciting for me my whole life, thinking about these potential futures, these virtual worlds. But the thing is, I never thought that I would be there to witness it. And yet, here we are today, talking about the metaverse and how, we're moving into that age, how many people think that it will be here, or it's already here, or it's going to be here in a few years, and we'll be all connected and we're moving to virtual worlds. And there's people saying, oh, but it's horrible because we'll all be like heroin junkies lying in a corner, in our virtual lives. So basically, our bodies are disintegrating because, all we do is we absorb that virtual experience, but we neglect our physical selves. Maybe not. But for those of you that are doubtful, that think, this is all just a hype, or this is not going to really happen, or, it's not going to happen so fast, or will it really have that kind of impact on our lives? I want to show you people something else, and I want to hopefully put you to thinking a little bit.
Heeft u een mobiele telefoon?
Nee.
Waarom niet?
Nou, dat heb ik niet nodig, want ik word toch niet gebeld of zo.
Heeft u een mobiele
So for those of you
telefoon?
that are watching
Nee, hoor,
this,
heb ik
I
niet.
kind of
Waarom
forgot
heeft u dat
that
geen?
Nou, ik zie er
there's
nu
no
niet van in.
subtitles, but this is in Dutch, and all of these people are getting the question,
Maar als ik ergens
would you want a mobile phone?
Gewoon een telefooncel of een boerderij met een boer met een telefoon.
Wat is 4G? Supersnel mobiel internet. Nee, dat heb ik allemaal niet.
Nee hoor, nee. Kijk thuis al even naar de mail en dat is het wel.
Leuk voor de mensen die er gebruik van willen maken, maar ja, voor mij hoeft het gewoon allemaal niet. Dus ik ga het ook nooit nemen.
So for those of you that are English and watching this and you have no idea, what exactly that was about. So all of these people were asked the question first, would you want a mobile phone? And they all answered, no, why would I want a mobile phone? Nobody wants to call me. I'm not that important. Or imagine me picking up the phone. I'm on my bicycle. And then the second set of videos is 2013. And people get the question, would you want 4G? 4G. We're talking about 4G here, or I think even 3G. And they're like, what's that? And they're like, it's super high broadband mobile internet. And they're like, no, I don't need that. I can check my email at home. It's nice for people that want it, but I don't care, and I'm never going to get it. Well, if anybody watching this knows any of these people that were in this video, especially at the end, that are saying that they didn't want high broadband in mobile internet, please come to me. Please come to me. Give me their name, their information. I'm going to go to their house. I'm going to reward you guys in our token or something, because I'm going to go to their house and I'm going to ring the doorbell. I'm going to ask, what do you have in your pocket right now? And I guarantee you 100% that they will have a smartphone in their pocket with 4G, at least, probably 5G, even though they said they were never going to use it. And this is the thing. This is the thing that we need to think about when we're thinking about the metaverse, right? When we're thinking about this whole movement to Web3, when we're thinking about that move into this virtual realm. The reality is that even though many of us will think that we don't need this, we don't want this, this is not something that will add value to our lives, there's all this potential risk of it making our lives horrible. The truth is that we have already set the first steps on this road towards that virtual existence, or at least adding that expanded virtual reality to our everyday lives. And we can see the proof. Because let's have a look at this. I have something else for you guys here. So for those of you watching, you probably know some of these names. If you're into this scene, if you're into gaming, this shouldn't be too strange for you. Minecraft, Roblox, and another game, Star Citizen. Usually when I'm talking to an audience, I ask people, so do you have any kids? And generally speaking, there's a few people in the audience that say, yeah, I have kids. And then I'll ask them, so what do your kids do? Do they play games? And then I almost always get a lot of people in the audience, and they say, yeah, my kids play Roblox, or my kids play Minecraft. That is, at least, if they're somewhere between 6 and 16 years old. And here are some numbers on this. And this is an interesting thing to realize, right? Because these games, current situation is as follows. Minecraft alone, which has existed since 2011, has over 126 million players around the world. More than 50% of boys aged 3 to 12 play Minecraft. Roblox exists since 2006, so that's already, for those of you paying attention, that's already more than 15 years. 37 million players in the US alone. It doesn't say that here, but this is US statistics. This is in the US alone. That means more than 50% of kids under 16 in the US play Roblox. And I can tell you the same thing is going on here in Europe and in big parts of Asia to differing degrees, right? This is a whole generation, because what do these kids do when they play Minecraft? What do these kids do when they play Roblox? They are in a virtual environment, interacting with other virtual players, virtual avatars, players, kids, and they're building stuff together. That's the whole thing. They're co-creating reality together. Yesterday, I was at the Rabobank, which is a big Dutch bank, and I asked these people this question, and one of them said, yeah, my kids play. And I said, what do the kids do? What did they do this week? And he said, I don't know. I think they were building mattresses. Mattresses. I was like, well, what did they do with the mattresses? He said, well, I guess they're sleeping on them with their virtual avatars. And I was like, yeah, that's interesting. The thing is, we have no idea what the kids are doing that, but it's no different than we had no idea what our kids are doing when they go out and play outside, in previous or even today. But when I was young, we had nothing else but to go play outside. Well, at least when I was very young. Later on, of course, I had my Commodore 64. And then after that, I had my 286 computer and I started playing video games. But I definitely couldn't go online, connect with other people from anywhere in the world and co-create stuff together. And that's very, very interesting, special. That's a whole generation that's already doing that. But it goes beyond that, because there's a game here called Star Citizen. And for those of you that don't know, Star Citizen was launched in 2012 as a Kickstarter project. And it is a game that's in development. It's not finished. In fact, there are several parts and pieces to it that are individually not even finished, and they're not even connected to the bigger whole. So it's not like one game you can play. There are several parts of it. And yet, over 350 million US dollars has been spent by players of Star Citizen. And mind you, these are not kids mostly, right? These are mostly grown-up men, admittedly men, mostly men, but also some women, that have spent 350 million US dollars on virtual assets, spaceships, in a game that's not finished, right? Think about that. Now, some of you might be thinking that these people are absolutely nuts, but those of you that were here for the previous talk about NFTs already know that that's not a fluke, right? The whole NFT market that has sprung into existence over the last 24 months, that reached its hype last year, is built on this. People are perfectly willing to spend money in a virtual environment. And so there is a massive drive around the world to make this happen. Money is pouring into this, interest is pouring into this, and technology is making it possible. And it's not all bad. I mean, I put this article here from New Scientist. Minecraft is helping children with autism make new friends. Because the beautiful thing is that compared to our previous world where our kids would go outside in the local neighborhood, play with local kids, which, is healthy, they're outside, they're in nature. The thing is, they would still be kind of restricted in their experience because they would meet, in my case, if they'd go outside here, they'd meet white Dutch kids of middle class economic status. And they wouldn't meet other kids. So they wouldn't gain much experience outside of that. And if we want to make it, and I know that I'm going, a bit overboard here for some people. I'm taking this to a big, I'm making it very big. But if we as humanity want to make it over the next, 50 to 100 years, we need to come together, right? Davos is going on today. They're talking about, World Economic Forum, Davos, climate change. It's a big topic. And it's not looking very good for us people. And unless we come together, we're not going to make it. I honestly believe that. And yet, the metaverse, this technology, is making it possible for people to connect in ways they've never been able to connect before, to relate to each other, to build empathy with each other in a way that they've never been before. Because kids can go and play a game with somebody from the other side of the world, from a completely different economic background, from a different ethnicity, culture, and they won't even know. They will only find out as their relationship grows and they spend more time together, they co-create together, and they learn new things from each other. And I think that's amazing. And of course, avatars will be a part of that, and motion capture is going to be a part of that. I haven't even mentioned that word yet, but don't worry, we're going to go there. Here's another game that was really way ahead of its time, that is showing the move that we're seeing into this new reality, this reality that is layered with a virtual meta layer. Pokemon Go. For those people out there that say gaming is always bad for you, well, here's proof that it doesn't have to be, that we have a real opportunity to change things. Now, Pokemon Go is a big hit because there's still, 827,000 daily players of this game. In fact, yesterday, even at the Rabobank, there was a guy that admitted that he plays Pokemon Go. One of my best friends plays Pokemon Go. And why? Because he loves the game, but he doesn't want to sit inside all day. And Pokemon Go allows him to go outside, experience the physical world with an added layer of entertainment, in this case, through augmented reality. And that's amazing. I think that's absolutely amazing. And this is where the future is going. But the truth is, none of us, nobody wants to be walking around with their mobile phone in their hands all day long, interacting with the world, right? It's just not a comfortable way for us to use augmented reality. So we'll see. We're definitely going to see a change, but I'll get into that in a bit. So I want to double back to the start of my story. We started talking about the metaverse. I showed you guys a cool video of your open metaverse. That's what we're building, the platform for it. But I've been using this word metaverse for my whole presentation now. And the truth is that a lot of people, will probably be like, yeah, but metaverse, what is it exactly? At least that's a question I get a lot. I see people advertising with, we have our own metaverse. I saw a company last week advertise that they will make a custom-built custom-built metaverse for different companies. There's people that claim that that Bored Ape Yacht Club says we have our own metaverse. And then there's people like me who say that's all a bunch of bullshit. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Remco, I wasn't allowed to say that, but I want to point this out, right? If we go back and we ask ourselves the question, so what is the metaverse? That perhaps it's more important to start with what it's not, right? The metaverse is not just virtual reality. Virtual reality in itself is not the metaverse. NFTs are not the metaverse. And the metaverse is not just NFTs. Web 3.0, same story. Crypto, same story. The metaverse is not a single game or single network. It's not going to be one company like Meta that owns it or builds it. It's not a single experience or activity, technology, or environment. The metaverse, in many ways, kind of like the universe, which it's named after, just universe, metaverse, It's all of that interconnected. As humanity, as we have grown in our understanding of the world, as a scientific method has brought enlightenment to the world, we've come to realize that we are not the center of the world, but in fact we are a part of a much bigger, more complicated system that is beyond our imagination in its size. And that's a universe, right? We're living in a galaxy, we're living on a planet in a solar system, and there's much more out there, and most of it we don't understand yet. And the funny thing is that the metaverse and the universe in that respect are the same. They are all encompassing, but only things that are part of it, connected to it, are part of it, right? Just like our physical reality is part of our universe, a virtual reality can only be part of the metaverse if it is connected to it, if you can travel from one place to another, if you can have an actual interaction. And yet, we don't know anything about it yet, what it's going to be, where it's going to go, and we're on a journey of exploration together. What does it mean, metaverse? What will the metaverse be then, or what will be the metaverse? Well, the metaverse will be interconnected. It has to be, right? So like you saw the Jurassic Punks before this presentation, if you were there, they're amazing. Don't get me wrong, I love that kind of stuff, but they're only going to have value and they will only be part of the metaverse if they are able to find their place in the bigger ecosystem, if they become interoperable, interconnected, right? At the end of the presentation, they said, what blockchain are you guys on? And he said, we're on Ethereum. Well, that's nice, but that means that right now, even if they probably don't have that set up yet, I don't know, I haven't been following the project, I'll admit, but they could interact with other projects on the Ethereum blockchain, right? They could be interoperable with those, but they won't be interoperable with anything outside of that blockchain initially, unless, things are developed for that. Like, for example, the Meta Portal project in Amsterdam, where they're trying to build bridges between different blockchains and different meta galaxies, is what I'll call them, or meta experiences. There's got to be co-creation going on, right? It's absolutely essential. We've learned from the past 2 decades of the internet that if we leave things in centralized hands with company like Meta or Microsoft, etc., to develop, they will not do what is in our best interest. At least most of the time they won't. Sometimes they will. I'm not complaining. I'm using Windows 11 here, and without it, I wouldn't be able to control my computer. I used PowerPoint to make this presentation, even though I think there are better alternatives that, unfortunately are just not as easy to use right now, or as widely spread, as decentralized. I was going to say decentralized, but it's not obviously true. But thing is, we might need it, but there's definitely things that we can improve. Over the last 2 decades, we've learned that so many of the things that we have let happen with the advent of Web 1 and Web 2, they weren't always great, and that was because we were not consciously dealing with it, not consciously involved. And so Web 3.0 and the metaverse have to be co-created. We have to be involved. It has to be a collective effort. And that shows also in the structures that are already coming into place to support it, because peer-to-peer is already an important part of anybody thinking about the metaverse, any project thinking about the metaverse. We're talking about decentralization. It needs to be decentralized. So many people need to be involved. There's some kind of, well, I would almost call it a democratic structure underneath it all that is expressed in the technological infrastructure. It's got to be multidimensional. It's got to be inclusive, right? It can be something that's just run and made by and for, privileged, rich white men. Although that in itself is already a contradictio in terminus, because if you're thinking about the metaverse, there's no race in the metaverse, right? There's no gender in the metaverse. If you go into the metaverse, if kids make an avatar in the metaverse, it can't have babies, right? There's none of that. It doesn't exist. And that is a great thing. Which, by the way, I'm gonna say something now. I'm gonna say something now that's a little bit controversial, right? What really hurts me is when I see things like Black Metaverse Week in the Bronx. Because, don't get me wrong, but that is bringing that's bringing racial politics into a place where it doesn't exist. So in a place that is pristine, in a place that is, innocent, where we can create a world that is without the problems that we created in the physical world. People are bringing in their political, racial politics there, and don't do that. Okay, gonna move on now from this one, but I have a strong opinion on that. Cool. Regain privacy. It needs to be open. The metaverse needs to be open. We have a great opportunity here using blockchain technology and decentralization to create a new world where we can leave behind a lot of the things that went wrong with our first iteration or second iteration of the internet, Web 1, Web 2. There's a real opportunity there. Cool. Yeah. Another something that I want to explain is that interoperability. I want to dive a little deeper into that. And I can also tie that back to, of course, for those of you watching, I'm the CMO at a company called BEEMUP, and we are developing a platform called Your Open Metaverse. And yes, if you're thinking to yourself now, didn't he just say that no one single platform or no single company or game could be the metaverse? Yes, I did say that. And yes, our name is Your Open Metaverse. The name itself does not imply that we own the metaverse, but what we want to express with that is our wish to make a contribution to what will be the foundational infrastructure of the metaverse. Something that enables interoperability from the get-go. And so to explain that a little bit better, I'm going to show you guys this little image here. We talk in our company, we talk about layer 1 versus layer 2 metaverse. And what we mean by that, well, this picture already kind of, visualizes that. We believe that current projects like Decentraland, the Sandbox, etc., Somnium Space, it's great that they're built on a blockchain. And in this case, they're built on Ethereum, just like, the Jurassic Punks before. But that doesn't instantly make them interoperable. It just makes it possible for them to be made interoperable to a certain extent. But the complexity of this situation with these layer 2 metaverses, as we call them, is that, each on its own, it's already a silo. Like it's an individual game developed with individual kind of laws of physics, right? The Sandbox looks a certain way and acts a certain way, and your interactions there are limited in a certain way. And the same goes for Decentraland, and they're different, right? And the same goes for Somnium Space. They're different. It's not the same world, and you cannot just instantly take an asset from the Sandbox to the Somnium Space or Decentraland. So we have companies like Metamundo that are building, the technological infrastructure to connect these worlds and make them interoperable. But that is a very complicated task. And if you do it that way, it also means that with every new project out there, every new world that people create, we'll have to again build that connectivity separately. It's kind of like, think of it like a city, right? And everybody wants to build their own building, but rather than using the standard infrastructure in a standard electricity grid, standard plumbing, they all come up with their own version of it. And then that has to be connected some way, complex, through a third party before they can be connected to the bigger grid. So we look at it differently. That's, the foundation for a company is that, the foundation for your open metaverse is that we should have certain infrastructures in place that are universal, that create like an open standard. So we chose to build a platform based on Unreal Engine and Solana blockchain in our case. And we're building a software development kit for that, so that anybody that wants to can build and create their own metaverse experience, which has all the features and the benefits of, for example, the sandbox or Decentraland or Somnium Space, whatever they want to build. But by building it with that, on that layer 1 platform, it will instantly be interoperable, basically at the flick of a switch, with any other experience or environment or world on top of that platform. Now, I'm not saying that this is going to work out perfectly. I'm also not going to say that we think we're going to be the only ones. Hopefully we won't. I mean, the way I envision this is like the world. There's different continents, there's different countries. And the European Union is a collection of several countries. And each country could be like, the Netherlands could be the sandbox, the Decentraland could be like Belgium, I don't know. Somnium Space could be like, I don't know, Ireland, I don't know. But they're all in the European Union, right? And so through that, they're connected to a different place. But actually, that's not the perfect example, because I should have done it the other way around. The European Union could be your open metaverse, where there's different countries inside of it. And they all have the same kind of legislation, but they can still have, a level of autonomy. Is that the right word? They're still autonomous to a certain extent. Cool. Yeah, so this is I kind of skipped over this. I'm going to skip over this for now, because this has to do with, what is Web 3.0 and how does that compare to Web 2 and Web 1. I want to go to bring it all together. So what does that mean? What is the metaverse? What's it going to be? Well, in my personal opinion, and in what we believe at Your Open Metaverse and BEEMUP, the metaverse will change how people interact with each other and with reality itself. It's a digital frontier to reshape the human condition, which, by the way, yes, I plagiarized that from Tron. And I think when you think about it that way, it's a much cooler way to think about it. And then once you know that, you realize that the metaverse is not a single technology. And you could ask the question, well, how is the metaverse different than from, the rise of the internet or mobile internet? And the question, or the answer to that question, is that we are now experiencing a paradigm shift in the convergence, or we're having a convergence of technologies that are creating a paradigm shift for humanity. We've never been in a place like this before. It's never happened. Now, this is the impact of the wheel. But the wheel was a single invention thousands of years ago, and we're still not done with its applications, right? The wheel still, provides us with new opportunities to change how our world works, even today. And yet here we are at a point in time where we're seeing these, this whole flock of technologies reach adolescence, that each on their own, blockchain, for example, is as impactful for the future of humanity as the wheel was. And I know some of you might not agree. Let's agree to disagree then. But that is what I truly believe. And now if you think about that, you have all these technologies, and instead of just being in one technology, we have at least 6 that I've written down here. And each of these technologies influences the other one. They all interconnect. They all have influence over the others, right? 5G will create hybrid technologies together with blockchain, together with human machine interfacing, together with AI. We're already seeing that. So they're all having, they're all on their own. They're like, think of it almost like Olympian gods with superpowers that can change the world. And yet all of them are also having sex. And they're creating new little, demigods like Achilles and I don't know, Hercules, right? And these are also going to change the world, right? So yeah, I don't know if that was the best metaphor I ever made, but I came up with that just now and I thought it was pretty funny. but that's what's going on, and that's just incredible. And so, you guys have already seen spatial computing is in here, virtual reality, augmented reality is in here, human machine interfacing is in there. And so we're moving into a time and an age where that whole virtual realm becomes more and more important. And, of course, we need to bring our humanity into that. And I've been a public speaking coach for a long time. And one of the things that I can tell you is that the advent of social media didn't make people more social. No. We thought it was going to happen, but the truth was that we became extremely toxic. Humanity has shown its darkest side on the web, on social media. But why is that? Well, I believe that is because when we moved into a digital age of communication, we stripped away initially most of what makes us human from our communication. Think about it. Dr. Merabian, who is pretty well known in the public speaking world, because he said something like, communication is built on 3 pillars. We have the written word or the exact content. Then we have verbal communication, the voice modulation that I use right now. And then we have nonverbal communication, which is what we do with our bodies. And that nonverbal communication is 55%. Voice modulation is 38%. And the words I use are only 7% when you look at the impact of communication, right? So when you strip those away and you only have text, you lose a big part of how people connect with each other, how we connect with each other as human beings. And so the trick for the metaverse is that we have to bring that back. And that's where, for example, I told you, nonverbal communication is 55%. That's motion capture right there. When Remco and Stefan talk about, I think they talk about the motion print. But I wish Remco was here. Motion print, like it's like a fingerprint for your movement print, something like that. I think that's going to be very important. We all know that in the physical world, if you see a friend from like a mile away, you can recognize them by their gait, right? And so moving into the metaverse, if we want to refine our humanity, if we want to connect again like human beings rather than, disconnected digital shadows of ourselves that don't care about the consequences of our words or because we can log off any moment, then what we need to refine is that connection with our ancient psychology, human psychology. And that means that we need to connect all of our senses. So not just words on a screen, but we need to connect, our physics. And we do that through motion capture. So I just wanted to add that one to make it, because I talk about the metaverse very much on that high level, but it's important to realize how we're going to be able to do that. Okay, so where are we at for time? Yeah, cool. So there's another thing I want to quickly put some time into. Carbon footprint. A lot of people are saying, yeah, but Aragorn, metaverse is all nice, but it's going to cost even more energy. It's going to waste even more, resources. Blockchain, proof of work is horrible for the world. Well, I disagree. First of all, the whole blockchain proof of work, energy consumption thing is ridiculous. It's absolutely 100% ridiculous. It consumes as much energy as a country, people say. But what kind of comparison is that? There's countries in the world that don't even have a proper electricity network. It's not really surprising that blockchain uses more energy than those countries, is it? No. Why don't we just compare it to something that makes more sense? Why don't we compare it to the energy we are using as humanity to produce beef? I guarantee you there's a lot of vegans these days and they won't shut up about it. But I guarantee you there's some of you out there, most of you out there have had meat this week. To eat that meat cost more energy by a factor of 100,000 than it costs to mine Bitcoin, right? So let's please not talk about proof of work because it's ridiculous. And the best part about it is you don't need to eat meat. But blockchain and Bitcoin have the potential to actually change the world for the better for all of us. So it's a much better investment So if you ask, look, I love my steak. I'm not gonna lie, but if you ask me if I would be willing to give up steak so that we can have proof of work, I'd say hell yeah, because all I need to do is eat like 2 slices of steak less a week to make that happen. Anyway, another thing is carbon footprint. Look at this video. This is our journey. Our move into the virtual and augmented realm is only going to mean that we need less of basically everything. You won't need screens anymore. You won't need televisions anymore. You won't need your mobile phone. You won't even need, photos or posters on your wall. You won't need, all kinds of physical attributes, wooden carvings in your house. Those are going to be, if you still have those, like, 10, 20 years from now, they'll be very, very highly treasured possessions, maybe. But you won't, anything that you buy now just because, it's easy, or to make your house look a little nicer, you won't need any of that anymore. Like 90% of what's at IKEA, you won't need it because we can virtualize all of it. And maybe you think, that's crazy. But if you've ever watched Star Trek and you've ever been to Vulcan, if you ever ask yourself why on Vulcan all they have is mountains, this is the most advanced scientific civilization in the galaxy with the Federation. And yet, whenever you see anything of their planet, there's nothing there. And that's because they virtualized all of it. They're just wearing contact lenses. They can have holo teleportation going on. They can just meet each other. And we're going there. Well, I'm not going to say you don't need shoes, but at least you don't need to have shoes to actually try them on before you can decide which ones to buy. And if you go into the supermarket with your grandma and she can't find, the chipolata pudding anymore, then, all you need to do is turn on your glasses. This is still a phone, but turn on your glasses and you'll find your way. So augmented reality is going to be probably the first step that we're truly going to experience in terms of our move to the metaverse, right? Think about it. Let's go back to NFTs and, the Jurassic Punks. It's great to have Jurassic Punks, but wouldn't it be much nicer if you could actually do something with them in your day-to-day lives, in your day-to-day world? So the kind of future that I foresee is one where, through augmented reality, we'll be able to interact with our NFTs and make them part of our actual lives. Hopefully, if I get a Jurassic Punk, I don't have one yet, but let's say that I get one, then a few years from now, I can just put it on the wall in my living room and I can see it. And when my friends come by and they're wearing augmented reality glasses, they can walk in my house, they will connect to my Wi-Fi, and because they connect to my Wi-Fi, they'll instantly have a handshake protocol connecting them to, my library of NFTs in my house, and they will see them hanging on my wall. That's going to happen. At least I'm rooting for that to happen. I would really love that to happen. Oh, I got a nice little video for you guys if you haven't seen this one already. This is on holo teleportation, which is actually already possible. Also very exciting.
As if we're co-present.
So this is Microsoft HoloLens.
You walk behind this chair.
And the cool thing is now they're getting holo teleported, but they're photorealistically holo teleported. But in the near future, you can also replace this, with your own avatar, which will also be very cool. This is another thing. This is, Google Glass. You guys remember Google Glass that was, disappeared from the consumer market? This is Google reintroducing it. This was released 2 weeks ago, I think.
他讲英文，我可以听得懂，可是有时候我讲不来嘛。
We'd love to be able to share with you a new prototype we've been working on. You should be seeing what I'm saying, just transcribed for you in real time, kind of like subtitles for the world.
What we're working on is technology that enables us to break down language barriers, taking years of research in Google Translate and bringing that to glasses.
You see me?
Oh, sí te veo.
I'm actually looking straight into your eyes, and it seems like you're looking right at me.
Oh, sí, estoy viendo lo que estás diciendo para allá.
Making access to information just instant and intuitive. By doing that, technology.
Yeah, I think that is so cool. I think it's super cool because I mean, this is some examples where there's kids and their parents, but imagine being a backpacker, a Western backpacker, right, from the Netherlands or from the US. One of the reasons that Europe looks to the US for technological innovations is because there's a cultural and a language barrier, right? We don't speak and understand Chinese. And so we look to the US to see what's up in the world. But the truth is, like, Amazon is still experimenting with drone flights. And in China, there's already hundreds of drone flight pads where drones are delivering stuff every day. But most of us don't know this because we don't speak Chinese, we don't understand what's going on there, and so we don't connect with it. Now, augmented reality is going to bring us technology that will erase those barriers. We can watch Chinese news and understand what's going on. We can travel there and we can actually talk to people and understand what they're saying. It's amazing. And yet it's also interesting to see what's going on here, because when Google first introduced Google Glass, it was a disaster. It was a privacy debacle. So they took it off the market. They went and kept developing it in B2B. And yet here they are again. And they're not calling it Google Glass. Well, guess what it is? It's Google Glass. And over the next few years, what you'll see is that they'll come to market with value propositions like this. They're not going to tell you, hey, buy Google Glass. They're going to tell you, hey, how would it be to be able to understand any language anywhere in the world instantly? Imagine Star Trek, your universal translator. But what they're really selling you is Google Glass. Personally, I think it's very cool. Super happy to see that they're back. Yeah, and it's going to be beyond that, because what it's going to really look like, it's probably going to be something like this.
Economic worries struck down the Dow and S&P 500 on Tuesday. In the backseat, turning up the heat, can't feel my feet, black sunglasses. And we got no job, trying to hang with the bang, live fast, die young till the sun.
Right, I'm not going to show you guys the whole video, but this was an announcement video from a Chinese company that's working on augmented reality glasses that can do all of that. It will integrate everything you do on your mobile phone today will be part of glasses that you wear, and that will also be, a fashion statement, etc., etc. It's exciting times, ladies and gentlemen. I really think it is. Another thing that I haven't even spoken about is digital twins. And this is something, again, where I think motion capture technology, for example, can play a real role. Right now, maybe some of you have used something like Descript, which is an online video editing technology. And Descript has this very cool feature where if you speak to Descript or you give it enough audio content, it can reproduce your voice. I should really make a video of this sometime. So my intern, Nicola, he found out 2 days ago that I had taught Descript my voice. And that meant that if he's editing videos for our content, for our marketing department, he can, if I said something wrong, he can remove that audio. He can then tell Descript he can write down what he wants me to say, and then Descript uses my voice to say it. He was blown away when he discovered that was possible. But that's the kind of world that we're moving into. Now, why am I telling you this? Well, for artificial intelligence to be able to do something like that, it needs to learn. So there needs to be input, right? So if you want to build a virtual avatar that can be your digital twin, that can even possibly represent you, that you can do things in a virtual world that you can then record as an influencer or for a movie or whatever, even send to a meeting, I don't know. Then it needs to learn who you are, what you do, and how you behave. And that's one thing for a voice where you can record it, but how are you going to do that with movement? And here again, I think that, there will be a tremendous opportunity for motion capture companies like Xsens and Movella going forward into this new space, because you'll need to give a lot of input to an artificial intelligence for it to truly understand how you move and then be able to replicate that in your digital or virtual twin. But that also presents, tremendous possibilities, because what if, I struggle with certain muscles And I can have that movement print that has been recorded through my, Movella Xsens wearables maybe in the future. And I send that to my physiotherapist. And then he runs it through his AI. And the AI says, well, it's no wonder you have a sore hip. You're limping. You're doing something wrong. You're moving your foot too fast or too slow or whatever. That is the kind of change that this technology enables in terms of medical science going forward. Cool. 47. I think I'm going to show you guys one last thing because I was talking about avatars, and that's this one. So, yeah, there we go. So, yes, movement isn't perfect yet, but this is my digital avatar. We've built this one together with Replica, which is a company from Rotterdam owned by Meulendijks, and his amazing team run it. This is my virtual avatar. I'm working hard to lose some weight so I can actually look like the avatar again, because this is modeled after me pre-corona, I have to admit. And we use Xsens Movella technology to move this avatar so that I can use it in the future for doing these kind of talks completely in virtual reality, which I very much look forward to. And then we use iPhone. I don't exactly know what the program is, but we use an iPhone to do this kind of facial motion capture. And we're working with Manus VR for the hand motion capture. And I think that's also extremely exciting, because soon it will mean that even my virtual avatar will be just as well capable of non-verbal communication through facial mimicry as the real us. And that's I think that's very cool, because that means, again, coming back to that necessity for us as human beings to be able to actually connect in virtual worlds with each other on a very human level. We need this, because that's what we evolved to work with over this last millions of years. So Metaverse, all of this amazing story. Let's get back to basics. What's the timeline on this? Right. Well, Gartner released a report called Metaverse Evolution Will Be Phased for Tech Product Strategy. And they basically saying, well, look, here's the timeline. We'll have innovators and early adopters move into the metaverse in the next 4 to 5 years, and then early and late majority will start joining 2025. So that's when we start to see, mainstream adoption of metaverse technologies, and the rest will follow at the end of the decade. Personally, I think they're wrong, actually. And a week ago, I wouldn't have said this, because I was still presenting this as, this is probably what it's going to look like. And don't get me wrong. I mean, yes, Gartner has hundreds and thousands of consultants, super intelligent people, and they probably did more research than I did. So I'm really that internet guy right now who says, well, I Googled it and I think differently. So maybe I'm making a fool of myself. But I don't think that this is actually going to happen this way. And the reason for that is the following graph. If we look at the rate of technological innovation and the change it has brought to society and to our economies, right? Then this is the graph that we have. You see exponential growth. If you read Jeff Booth's book, The Price of Tomorrow, he talks about it as well. When you read the book Super Intelligence by, I forgot his name. Quickly check it. So Nostrom? I always forget his name. Super amazing guy. Or is it Nick Bostrom? Yes, Nick Bostrom, Super Intelligence. If you read these books, they talk about how this exponential growth and this exponential deflationary power of technology is going beyond what we are capable of understanding as human beings. And so it's very hard for us to imagine looking forward how fast our lives will change. But the truth is we look back at the, mobile phones and mobile internet. We didn't adopt it just because there were smartphones. Nobody started using a smartphone just because they wanted to use a smartphone. There were certain apps, technologies that were invented as a result of the capabilities that were enabled, unlocked through the mobile platform, through mobile internet, through smartphone technology, through touchscreen technology, that allowed people to create things that really struck a chord with humans. And I don't know what it exactly was. I wouldn't be amazed if it was a fart app. I wouldn't be amazed if whole of smartphone adoption was a result of somebody making a fart app and that everybody started using it, and I just don't remember. It's probably something like that, or probably something like, I don't know. Maybe it was chat. Maybe it was just chat. I mean, let's face it. We all want to chat. My whole generation, I looked forward to going home, getting an MSN, and chatting to the girls in school that I liked, hoping that they would also be online and kind of making that connection that it was easier to make digitally than it was physically, because I'd always, get the jitters. Maybe that's what drove smartphone adoption. I don't know. But what I can tell you is that in the next, 2 years, we'll see stuff coming up. Maybe it's these apes. Maybe it's these Jurassic Punks. Maybe it's going to be the next iteration of NFTs. But there's going to be something that's really going to strike a chord with human imagination, and everybody will want to be a part of it. And when that happens, they won't care that it's, uses blockchain, or that it's crypto, or that it's a metaverse, and they said they were going to not take part of that, they were going to hate it, because when all your friends are doing it, you're going to be doing it. And that stuff is going to happen much, much faster as a result of our increased connectivity currently. Oh, I'm going over time. I was going to go into big tech versus, the metaverse community and all of that, but I'm going to skip over that. I think we're going to win it because we're just more mobile, more agile, less restrained. So don't you guys and girls and non-gender people out there, of course, worry about that. Big oil tankers are incapable of making sharp turns. Check out our Metaverse platform. Got to shield myself a little bit here. Go to yom.community if you want to learn more about us. And if you want to see us in the Netherlands, we're going to be showcasing the Xsens Movella suit at the NPO Innovation Festival on the 2nd of June. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn or on Twitter through any of these handles or this QR code. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. Stefan, are you there?
Hey, yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Just to recap, I think for me, what the metaverse should eventually be is, what the internet is right now, right? It doesn't matter which device I pick up. I can just go on the internet, doesn't matter which browser I use. And I think that will be the most important thing. So, interoperability, making sure that everything connects to,
absolutely.
Even if it's different platforms, it should just simply work. And I think that is really key to making this work, because I definitely foresee a big future in this. But I think it's indeed very important that, big companies should also set aside their own business models and, start working together to make something like this happen.
I couldn't agree more. We call it the device agnostic. So basically, you should be able to access it through any device. And so it was interesting listening to Jurassic Punks. There was this conversation about pixel streaming, which is also a choice we made very consciously. Pixel streaming, we think, is the way to go, because basically there you move the required computing power from the consumer platform to the cloud, which makes it much more accessible, and you can use, of course, it's much more scalable. So yeah, agree with you. Totally agree.
Absolutely. Well, thanks again for the great talk. I hope all of you that were listening in also learned a lot from this. I think I did. I think it was really interesting.